I used to believe my life was engineered, not in the way engineers build skyscrapers or engines, but in the elegant precision of how things aligned. By 37, I stood at the helm of Veritas Systems, the fastest rising tech company in the Pacific Northwest. I was the architect of my destiny, or so I thought. My name is Jeff Arlen. I was raised in privilege, the adopted son of David and Celeste Arlen, respected philanthropists and tech investors. From childhood, I was told I was chosen, that I was special. Every success I had was mirrored with their soft smiles and guiding words. It all seemed perfect, until the day we received the leak. It came as a sleek black envelope slid under the security door of our Bellevue office. Inside was a USB with code, beautiful code that shouldn't have existed outside Axon Core, our chief competitor. My CTO, Lena, analyzed it. It's their project, Orion, a total neural adaptive interface, decades ahead of us. Someone inside must have leaked it, which means we could beat them to market. I should have said no, but I didn't. Axon Core had ruled for years, built by the legend himself, Richard Brown. His name was synonymous with progress. I remembered an article I read a while back that his son had died as a baby, though it always seemed strange to me that a man so meticulous could have suffered something so chaotic. But the leak turned everything. Over the following months, we rebuilt Orion under a new name, Lucent. We changed the code, rerouted the core architecture, obscured the neural threading. But innovation, no matter how disguised, has a signature, and Axon Core noticed. They hired a private investigator, a meticulous man named Rowan Greaves. He wasn't an ex-cop or a PI with a trench coat. He was a soft-spoken man with AI-infused search systems and a calm that unnerved my team. He began picking through our patents, funding, even our staff. Lena started getting jumpy. "He's not looking for theft. He's looking for connections," she said. Greaves never found our leak, but he found something else. "You were born August 18th, 1988, yes? At Bayview Hospital in Seattle?" I blinked. "That's right." He slid a file toward me. There was a kidnapping that night. An infant was reported stolen from the maternity ward almost immediately after birth. "What are you saying?" I asked, not wanting to hear his response. "You were never adopted through legal means. Your records were altered. The birth certificate, hospital logs, vaccination charts, all forged. I traced funding routes, the digital breadcrumbs leading to a cover-up." That's when my entire world came crashing down. That night, I drove to my parents' house and confronted Celeste, my adopted mother. "Tell me it's a mistake." She didn't deny it. Instead, she cried and said, "You were ours the moment we held you. We saved you." I asked about the Browns, about Richard. She hesitated. "He didn't deserve you. He was cold, obsessed with legacy. He wouldn't have loved you." I saw the shadows in her eyes, the flicker of fear at being exposed. It wasn't regret, it was defensiveness. Then the gaslighting followed. "We told you that you were adopted, you just don't remember. You're letting that man manipulate you." But the more I looked, the more the inconsistencies built up. Photoshopped baby pictures, the nurse who vanished, the hospital fire that conveniently destroyed records. Greaves had reconstructed timelines using dark web traces, medical equipment logs, even HVAC records showing anomalies in the maternity wing's temperature that night, suggesting a break-in. He triangulated it all with social media posts from a nurse who'd once made a cryptic comment. "The brown baby didn't vanish, he was taken." The illusion cracked, and so did I. I confronted Richard Brown in his towering office at Axon Core. "Do you know who I am?" He looked at me with weathered, analytical eyes. "I suspected, from the moment I saw your prototype. The mind behind it, it reminded me of mine." "Why didn't you find me?" he sighed. "They told me at the hospital our son had died, but something inside me, call it a gut feeling, wouldn't rest. We searched, but never found anything. The trail went cold, and at one point, I thought it could have been true, that you had died. Eventually, Axon Core needed to move forward. So you gave up." No, I buried the pain. There's a difference. The media exploded. Rumors of my identity spread like wildfire. Axon Corps and Veritas both launched internal investigations. Public relations disasters on both sides. Tech blogs devoured every piece of the story. I stayed silent until I couldn't anymore. I called a press conference. I stood before the world and declared, I am not a Brown. I am not an Arlen. I am the product of a lie, raised in deception, and surrounded by ambition so desperate it would steal a life to forge a legacy. They wanted me to choose a side, but I chose neither. My next move was radical. I halted Lucent's launch indefinitely. I sent cease and desist letters to both companies over IP claims. I hired an external legal team to file civil and criminal suits against both boards. Then I vanished for a while. Lena found me weeks later in Iceland, coding in a remote cabin. You're walking away from billions. I'm walking toward the truth. Why destroy them both? Because neither of them ever built anything real. Richard Brown died from a stroke 6 months later. Some say the scandal broke him, others say it was just time. David and Celeste Arlen were indicted for financial misconduct conspiracy. Kidnapping charges were quietly dropped after legal loopholes and statute issues, but the public verdict was damning. Veritas dissolved. Axon Corps fractured. The industry reset. And I started Noesis, a think tank focused on ethical innovation, run by misfits, survivors, and engineers who still believed in invention over empire. I have no company now, no parents, but for the first time, I have the truth. In the end, the deception wasn't just in what they told me, it was in what they needed me to believe, so I would serve their ends. A pawn in an empire, an heir to a throne, and now I walk away from it all. I didn't walk away to forget, but I will never be lied to again. Lena never truly smiled, not in the time I'd known her. There were brief lifts at the corners of her mouth, but they never reached her eyes. Now, looking back, I realize it wasn't because she lacked joy, it was because she always knew something I didn't. When she came to Iceland, it wasn't just to find me, it was to confess. We sat on a frozen balcony overlooking a glacial lake. She passed me a thin black notebook, the kind engineers scribble in when they don't trust the cloud. You should know, she said, not meeting my eyes. I leaked the code, Orion, to you. My chest tightened. Why? Because you deserved the truth, Jeff. I've known since year one who you were. I worked for Brown before Veritas. I saw your face and I knew. I recognized your birthmark. You were the missing Brown child. I stood, the cold wind slicing across my jaw. Rage swelled and broke like a tidal wave. You manipulated me. She didn't argue, just nodded. Yes, because they were never going to tell you. Rowan Greaves wasn't just a PI. He was a ghost of the system. He once worked for the Federal Data Integrity Division, FDID, back when it was still classified. He met me in Prague, where he kept a secondary office under a false name. He laid it all out. The hospital fire had been started by a janitor with ties to Arlen Enterprises. The adoption records had been edited not once, but 3 times across separate jurisdictions. Your entire identity, Greaves said, pouring coffee, was rewritten across 5 layers of infrastructure: state, federal, medical, educational, even psychological. Psychological? Your school counselor, Mrs. Lawton, was an Arlen Foundation grant recipient. She steered your profile: tech aptitude, early leadership, strategic aggression. You were being shaped. The fortress of lies hadn't just been built around me. It had grown inside me. I began dreaming in code again. I saw endless recursion loops, childhood memories running in infinite cycles, but each time I heard new dialogue, words I couldn't place in memory. Don't tell him about the blanket. He asks too many questions. One day, he'll remember. I started calling former teachers. One, a math professor, confessed that she'd been paid to keep my independent studies focused on AI development. I was told you were destined for innovation, that your family had plans. What family? She paused. I didn't ask. We were told not to. Lena stayed with me in Iceland. She cooked in silence. She wrote in notebooks. She watched documentaries about dismantled monarchies. Do you feel like a prince overthrown? She asked one night. I feel like a bomb they wired from birth. She kissed me. It was unexpected but electric. You weren't born broken, she whispered. They just calibrated you to self-destruct. I came back to Seattle unannounced. The city hadn't changed, but the air around me had. Veritas HQ was now boarded up, its servers seized by the feds. Axon Corps was under new leadership. Richard's second in command, Mara Quinn, a woman with shark eyes and a silver tongue. You left a crater, she said, pouring whiskey in the executive lounge. You won't be welcomed here. I'm not here to be welcomed. I'm here to burn the blueprints. I began collecting every version of Orion, every iteration from both companies, and I found something no one else had. A fragment of code, time-stamped, not from Axon Corps or Veritas, from a third source. A private IP address belonging to Celeste Arlen. She had designed the theft, not just my life and my identity, but the very innovation that caused the war. She had commissioned an independent lab 20 years ago to work on a precursor to Orion. It was her design. Richard had stolen it first, then David and Celeste had stolen me. Then Lena had stolen it back, believing it belonged to me. All of it was a chess game played with flesh and blood. I sat alone in an underground server room, holding the evidence in my hands. I had a choice: expose them all or disappear forever. I activated a dead man switch. Rowan Greaves helped me set it up. A secure, AI-based release protocol connected to 37 nodes across the globe. If I failed to reset it every week, it would drop the entire archive. Every file, every timeline, every voice memo, and manipulated record into the public domain. I uploaded everything: my falsified adoption records, Celeste's off-ledger IPs, payment trails to the rogue R&D firm in Geneva, and video of Lena's original confession. I titled the archive Project Prometheus. Then I started the countdown. 7 days. She knew something had changed the moment I stopped speaking in code. We were in Berlin, finalizing the transfer of Orion's neural threading to a neutral academic group. She watched me from across the hotel suite, frowning. You're planning something. I'm always planning something. She stood. Jeff, if you burn them, you burn me too. You burned yourself the day you used me to prove a theory. She came closer. I still believe in you even after all of it. Then help me finish it or get out of my way. She stared at me, eyes rimmed with something I mistook for defiance, but now know was heartbreak. When you kill a lie, Jeff, something in you dies with it. Day 7. I went live from an abandoned Veritas substation. The walls hummed with old energy, cables still pulsing like arteries. The world watched as I laid it all bare. My name is Jeff Brown. I was kidnapped in 1988 by 2 people who wanted to build an empire through me. My legacy is stolen. My childhood, a fabrication. My companies, war machines in suits. I played the audio logs. Celeste's voice. We'll raise him better than Richard ever could. David's. He won't remember. We'll make sure of it. Lena's whisper. He deserves to know, but he'll destroy everything if he ever learns the truth. I ended with the release key. Project Prometheus was live. The world fractured. Governments opened investigations. Axon Corps' remaining board resigned. Veritas stock delisted within 48 hours. Universities began open forums on digital identity, truth engineering, and AI ethics. Celeste was arrested. David fled. An Interpol warrant followed. Lena disappeared. I received thousands of emails from survivors of similar deceptions, children adopted under mysterious circumstances, whistleblowers, hackers, and orphans of empires. They called me a symbol, but I felt nothing. Greaves met me in Kyoto. You've done what no one else could. It wasn't justice, I said. It was demolition. Sometimes it takes fire to grow a forest. He handed me a file. Lena's last known location, Tunis. She left a final message. Said she wanted you to know the full truth. I opened it. Inside was the original Orion core, version 0, with a note in her handwriting. It was never about revenge. It was about freeing you from the machine. 1 year later, I live in a converted observatory in Chile. I teach systems theory to a class of 9. No phones and no surveillance, just ideas. The world still debates Project Prometheus, and I stay silent. But at night, I still hear their voices, all of them like echoes in circuits. I am not Jeff Arlen. I am not just Jeff Brown. I am what remains when the lie burns away. I am truth, unchained. Thank you for spending time with me. If this story moved you, share it. Someone else might need to hear it too. God bless you.